Selling luxury online in China. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. E-commerce is a growing trend in China, as we've already talked about in earlier episodes of Thoughtful China. But luxury marketers face some very specific challenges when it comes to online sales in this market. The danger of buying fake products is a bigger concern when the product comes from a famous designer and costs tens of thousands of RMB instead of basic products like soap powder or instant noodles. Websites don't easily lend themselves to a luxury customer experience either. The words "click here to purchase" just aren't as satisfying as walking out of a store with the latest Louis Vuitton bag on your arm. But opportunities of online sales are enormous for luxury marketers. So this week, our experts, Alex Messeri, Julian Chiavasa, and Anson Bailey, will help you understand the market and avoid some of the mistakes made by early entrants. And Julia Zhu will share a thought or two about why luxury brands need to take action in China now. But first with us is Thibaut Valette, CEO of Glamour Sales China, the first online authorized outlet in China focusing on luxury, fashion, and lifestyle brands. Previously, he was president of the Coach brand in Greater China and VP of L'Oreal's luxury products division in Japan. Thibaut, welcome to our studio. Now, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing the Chinese e-commerce market in general, especially for luxury goods?
Well, obviously, and we just conducted a study on 10,200 luxury e-shoppers in China, and we're going to publish next week a white paper together with KPMG and Moguji. The first barrier remains trust. Trust, especially because there are a lot of counterfeits, luxury goods, and because the ecosystem in China so far has been allowing those products to be sold online. So trust remains one of the barriers. The second is price. The Chinese consumers who buy luxury are more and more aware of what we call a worldwide pricing. 80 million Chinese people travel abroad, witness the prices in Hong Kong, in Italy, or in the States, but more and more they also travel digitally. And they are shopping on foreign websites, and more foreign websites are shipping to China. So when they check the prices online, and if the price gap is high, this is clearly a barrier for them to purchase, and then they would be seeking for value. The last could be that as we are at the beginning of the development of luxury in China, there are some customers who still would expect to discover the brand in a store, would like to feel the luxury environment, touch the products, and get a great service from the store assistant or associates. This is a great challenge for us, but fortunately what we've witnessed is the younger generations are much more eager to purchase online, especially the generation of the 80s and the 90s. And also what we notice is that in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, there are a lot of affluent customers willing to buy, but they cannot find those brands in those cities. And I think the opportunity for luxury online sales moving forwards is also because there has been a small and slow development of the retail infrastructure in China compared to the growth and the spread of wealth and appetite for luxury goods. So despite the current challenge that we have, I'm very optimistic for the further growth of online sales of luxury goods, not only on discount, but also in full price. And as a study we did just pointed out, especially customers who are in their 20s are looking not only for value when they purchase online, but they are looking for new, different brands and products that can suit their taste and that can differentiate themselves from their peers. And I think this is showing that we are at the very beginning of the growth of full-price e-commerce in China.
So you think that you could transition Glamour Sales from being known and perhaps famous for providing extra value and discounting to actually incorporating full-priced luxury goods from official brands?
We do that on a regular basis. We do tests, and the latest test we have done shows that in some categories, such as beauty, such as handbags, the level of discount that we have to offer is getting smaller and smaller. We used to offer, in average, 55% discount, and we have been recently doing events where we offer 20–25%, and we get a good response. So we're not yet there to full price, but is there really any full price? Because when you go to a store, usually you get points that are given by the department stores, or you get kinds of GWPs or whatever of offer. So what I consider a price with only 20 or 25% discount is getting very, very close to the full price. And I think that moving forward, there will be more and more such opportunities.
So for brands who haven't yet worked with Glamour sales, what are some of the mistakes that you've seen marketers make when trying to sell online?
First, we are in China, and we need to keep in mind the balance between localization and internationalization of platforms. China is a different ecosystem. Social medias are different. The way to navigate online and to find information is different. There is a very big need for Chinese customers to get a lot of details. Look at the Taobao page. You will find 15 product pictures and so many comments. Go to an American website or a European website. Usually you have 3 product pictures and two small comments. So you need to adapt the presentation of the products, adapt the assortment of the products. Be very careful as regards to the pricing. Consumers are traveling globally. Focus on the customer experience. What is the customer experience? In online luxury retail, the reversed logistic is as important as the direct logistic. Exchanging or returning products is normal. So you need to be able to implement the right processes, have the right customer care team who can really offer the expected level of service.
Have you found one partner in China? That is a huge stumbling block. In fact, when you talk about logistics, that we deal with when we talk with guests from various industries. So did you find one specific partner, or have you regionally found a variety of partners to help with that?
So we work in Japan with the largest Japanese company doing e-commerce logistics. And in China, we're working with a Hong Kong company called Cargo, who is a partner of Lane Crawford, Gucci, and many other fashion and luxury brands. We have been driving together with Cargo the development of all these processes. I have been helped by a very strong operation director and managers that I hired from the best e-commerce companies, both in China and worldwide. And we have been really working very, very hard on that, because I do believe that beyond just brands, products, or great clients, what is really at the core of e-commerce is the logistic and the customer care. And very often when we meet with brands, they are focusing on how do I get the clients, or on how do I get my IT up and going. But actually, my advice to any brand willing to start e-commerce in China is first to get their logistics right, their customer care right. And after that, they can go and search for customers and offer them the right product.
Fascinating. Thibaut, thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Let's take a break to hear from our sponsor.
Let's go!
Luxury companies face many challenges using e-commerce in China. There are brand protection issues related to fake products and unauthorized distribution channels. It is hard to deliver a high-quality online shopping experience on par with offline retail channels, and it is difficult to differentiate between true luxury shoppers and those one-off buyers in a search of a good deal. But luxury brands need to take action now, and here's why. First, the fundamentals are already in place. China is already home to the world's largest online shopper population, and the Chinese government views the development of e-commerce as critical to future economic growth. If you wait for the infrastructure to reach optimal levels, it will be too late. By entering now, you gain necessary experience as the market matures. Second, e-commerce have already challenged and transformed China's traditional retail industry. Chinese offline retailers are proactively going online or being forced to embrace online channel. And Chinese online consumers are becoming more sophisticated. Finally, luxury consumers outside major cities such as Beijing and Shanghai crave the latest luxury products. Yet, given the sheer geographic size of China, it is nearly impossible for luxury retailers to open brick-and-mortar store fast enough to establish a direct presence in every possible location. E-commerce is the best way to enable luxury brands to fulfill unmet demand. China's e-commerce market will continue to grow at double-digit rates over the next 3 years. For luxury brands that commit to the Chinese market, you will need to take time to develop your China e-commerce operations and understand Chinese e-luxury consumers. Chances are your competitors have already entered the market. So why not start early? If not now, then when?
Thanks, Julia. We're back in our studio now with Anson Bailey, Principal for Business Development at KPMG International, Julian Chiavasa, Head of Digital and E-commerce for Asia Pacific at Clarins, and Alexander Messeri, Senior Vice President and Head of the E-commerce practice at Razorfish. Alex, Julian, Anson, thanks for coming to Thoughtful China. Now, Thibaut and Julia are obviously very optimistic about the luxury e-commerce market in China. Do you agree with them, and what do you think is driving this trend right now?
We can already see that it's going to be big, even for luxury companies. We've started on our own to run our e-commerce website 1.5 years ago, and we had amazing traction from the moment we really decided to enter in the environment. And it's true that the kind of appetite for discount and the environment so far is still pretty much a big change for luxury brands. But I would say the market is evolving very, very fast. And even big players like Tmall, Jingdong, etc., they are very rapidly trying to kind of get away from pure discount platforms to also be able to work with some luxury brands. They are trying to secure the supplies from the luxury brands, and this comes clearly with conditions coming from the brands which are no discount anymore. So we are going to see very, very quickly these brands coming on these major players. Clarins, for example, was one of the first luxury skincare brands to be on Tmall. We started our Tmall platform 6 months ago, and I think today we are the most luxurious brand on the platform, and we never do any discount. So it's getting there. And we already see that Tmall is driving as much traffic and let's say as much sale as we are driving in our .com platform.
So talk about that a little bit. About 1.5 years ago, you launched your .com platform, and then 6 months ago on Tmall.
Yeah.
Was there no fear of cannibalization, and why not concentrate on driving all the traffic to one site? Was there a specific strategy there?
There are different strategies. First of all, clearly cannibalization was something we are still studying very, very carefully because it's only been 6 months, so we are still studying it. What we observe currently is that we do not have the same customer profile on the two different platforms. So somehow we seem not to have that cannibalization, which is a good thing for us. Then there are two kinds of strategies. First of all is that being on Tmall is kind of a no-brainer. You have so much traffic there, so much potential, I would say. You just want to pick the fruit out of the tree somehow. And Tmall is pretty supportive in helping us going in a good direction. But still, it's, I would say, more closed environment in terms of CRM data, etc., etc. So we are still clearly nurturing a lot our .com presence, not only for sales, but also from an image building kind of flagship, online flagship store.
And speaking of different profiles, Anson, talk a bit about first tier and let's say third or fourth tier customers who are buying online. Do they all buy luxury products across China, the same? Do they shop for the same types of items? Do they shop at the same price points? Or are you seeing very big differences between first tier and lower tier customers?
Trevor, it's a great question. I think the interesting thing, of course, if we look at the tier 1 cities, most of those consumers have very large shopping malls, They have a lot of those flagship stores that have been put into place by those brands. So they're used to the labels, you know, and they're used to dealing with all of those luxury items. That's different, you know, in a tier 4 or tier 5 city, as we all know, it's really quite a different marketplace. And the consumers, especially those high net worth individuals, you know, there is a sizable number here in a place like Shanghai, but as you go down, less so. And also, you know, those consumers that live in those tier 4 and tier 5 cities, they simply can't go down to their local shopping mall and walk into one of those brand stores and pick up the latest makeup or apparel or pair of shoes. So e-commerce, in fact, is a great enabler, because as we all know, you know, China is a very, very big market, but it's also a very fragmented market. And you do have a lot of regional differences.
There was a time when a bit of a stigma was attached to e-commerce, in the sense that a lot of the luxury brands that I talked to were thinking, well, I don't really want to set up an e-shop, you know, for my types of products, because they're not suitable for consumption online. I need you to come in the store. I need you to have that full experience. Has that completely worn off, you know, and is that because of the fact that bricks and mortar has lost a bit of its luster, or is it because they've awakened to the fact that e-commerce can still be a luxurious experience and still can be very service-driven, but in a different way? What do you attribute it to?
I would say that Chinese consumers are extremely sophisticated in the way they interact with brands, in the way they interact with each other, in the way they use digital devices, mobile, especially mobile. And the relationship that brands have with their clients was only through a retail space a few years ago. Then it moved to some brand site, then it moved to some Weibo, now it moves to some WeChat. Even luxury brands have their WeChat account. And then slowly it's coming for luxury. Other tier brands have started before, but for luxury it's coming on e-commerce as well. And so the nature of the relationship and the discussions happening have evolved quite a lot. And this is generating new consumer behaviors. So by nature, by the Chinese people way of using and using their mobile phone and interacting with brands and with each other, but also the brands, some of them, and they are picking up more and more, and I think Clarence is a good example in this one, understand this and want to lead on this and want to stop saying, okay, I close my eyes, I don't look at what happens in e-commerce because e-commerce is not good enough for me. I can't do e-commerce. They stop saying that. Can't mention which brand, but some other very, very luxury brands are now preparing for their e-commerce launch globally and in China. And they all understand that e-commerce now, this is our strong belief at Razorfish, e-commerce is one touch point with the client. You've got a store, a physical store, you've got your Weibo, you've got your WeChat, you've got many different touch points, and an e-commerce store on Tmall, on a brand site, on a mobile store is one touch point. And we think that we can add value, a brand can add value to the consumers and should use e-commerce to add value to the consumers in the relationship they have with the consumers.
I just want to pick up from that point from Alex, because I totally agree. I think what brands and companies need to understand is that the consumers today here in China, they are savvy consumers.
They are omni-channel, like you were saying.
They are omni-channel consumers.
More than marketers.
And if you look at it, and for me it's always quite amusing, because the brands come and talk to our team, and my colleagues often talk about, well, is China such a sophisticated place? All you've got to do is look at the number of smartphones. We're talking about 600 million smartphone users out there in China today. We are now facing this new, younger, tech-savvy, mobile-centric consumer.
So can you mention or use as a case study an excellent brand example that's successfully executed e-commerce as well as social and really wrapped it together in the luxury space?
You can say Clarence. I was going to say. I was going to say. It's not me. I was going to say.
I was also going to say. There's a lot of brands that have failed.
Right.
No, but seriously, I mean, it's
well, then give us some insight into
sure.
why it was a success and you know,
How
what
did you do
learnings
it,
you got. Yeah, how you did it.
Well, I don't know if we're the most successful, but I think that we've been pretty okay in handling our let's say, digital approach and e-commerce approach in China. I think there are different things which led us that way. First of all, we had really, really strong commitment from top management. And this is key. I mean, if you don't have the commitment from the CEO of your company, then you are really, really going to struggle, because e-commerce retail sales are still kind of small percentage of the sales in the P&L of a company. So if you don't have support from the top, it's going to be very hard to kind of justify investment resources by the number of sales, because you need kind of invest to make it grow.
Just to jump in on this one, we see it with every client. Those that where the CEO, up to CEO, understands and pushes e-commerce and digital can have success, and usually do. Those where the CEO says, I don't care, it's 2% of my revenue, why should I spend more than 1% of my time or 2% of my time? Failure, for sure.
Is there anything then coming up on the horizon that either of you have seen coming up? I mean, WeChat is here and now the big whale, but is there something that's, you know, sort of catching heat right now and that you think potentially in a couple of years could be a big mover in terms of e-commerce or luxury, you know, sales in China?
Well, I think one of the key things, when we talk about e-commerce, but perhaps one of the things we haven't really touched on are things like data analytics, because I think when the brands really get to understand their consumers a lot better, the rewards are limitless, you know, sky high.
I think social media is definitely, social commerce and social media is definitely going to grow and going to be even more important. Every day that passes by, social and social commerce, there must be a social commerce approach to e-commerce in China. And this social dimension, commerce is in China more and more, and should be more and more in China. It means localized, but this social part is going to be more and more global.
International, right.
International and global. And it's quite often that we see bloggers and their followers to actually get their source, to actually benchmark, to actually do things on international platforms. It's quite a trend.
Trevor, just to add on, I think another interesting dynamic here is the fact, again, the Chinese government have been proactive and supporting this whole area of e-commerce. You know, they've now granted, I think, somewhere in the region of 200 licenses for non-bank domestic payment providers. So if we look back 12 months ago, and in this new research that we've recently conducted, you know, it was about cash on delivery. Now we're seeing a lot more payment platforms available out there in the marketplace.
And this is extremely important for luxury e-commerce in China.
Yes.
Extremely important. It's a game changer for the luxury e-commerce in China, because shipping even if it's 2,000 or 3,000 worth of bag, goods, whatever, throughout China, on cash on delivery, it means that the delivery guy will have 2,000 or 3,000 renminbi cash in his hand when he goes back, with all the problems that this creates. Not even talking about cash flow for the seller, but with so online payment and the fact that Chinese consumers now trust more and more. 6 years ago, 9 years ago, very few people trusted e-commerce and sellers on Taobao, especially, etc., with all the scandals there were and everything. But now it's quite a cleaner and cleaner.
Getting cleaner.
Well, the friction has been reduced to a point where payment was, I think, one of the last big stumbling blocks.
Absolutely.
And that has been removed. And once that's removed, then it's really a matter of who can sort of lubricate the machine faster, you know, as a brand, to make it work better for them.
Yeah, and I think one of the exciting things that we're seeing around the table today is this perfect storm that's developing in China. The number of mobile users, the number of smartphones, you know, the expansion of e-commerce, the number of payment platforms that are now starting to take root. You know, this is going to be a very exciting market in the years to come.
But at the same time, kind of to show the downside of it, it makes it very, very complicated somehow to wander in this market and to choose to bet on the right platform, on the right payment systems, to be visible online. China is clearly not a cheap market when it comes to online advertising and attracting, I would say, users to your website. And I think this is also something which is very, very important, because as much as I would say the market is getting more mature somehow and ready and open for e-commerce, is getting also more and more expensive to kind of reach these consumers. So it may be clearly less expensive than opening and expanding through brick and mortar stores. And that's the beauty of the online somehow, is that you can go very fast everywhere in China, but still you kind of have a very fine-tuned strategy and approach in terms of understanding that it is a very fragmented and segmented market in terms of population, needs, habits, etc., etc. And that as a brand, you also need not to consider China as a whole, I would say, but as so many individual markets, and this is very key.
Well, it's very interesting because you mentioned omnipresent, which is a term that's thrown around quite often when it comes to saying where the brand should be. I have a theory that actually luxury brands specifically should be more optimized, so omnipresent, if you will, and being in
you
only
just made that word up.
Pretty much, yeah. But I think it works. Well, it's a theory because I really believe that luxury brands, after a certain point, they don't want to be on every platform. Yeah. And in fact, being on Tmall versus Taobao versus other smaller players who might get you a few more tens of thousands of viewers or buyers, but they don't fit your brand image and your brand platform. So I think optimizing where you go is just as important as being everywhere your consumers are.
And Trevor, I think just to add to that, of course, a lot of the luxury brands are going to tell you that it's all about scarcity. It's about the experience, experiential, going into their stores, the touch, the feel, the service side of things. Yes, I still believe it's about that, but we have to, and they have to, embrace the 21st century. They absolutely need to embrace this new Chinese consumer, because if they don't, then they are going to lose significant market share.
Alex, Julian, Anson, thanks for being on Thoughtful China.
Great to see you, Trevor.
That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Youku, Tudo, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo and Twitter and join our LinkedIn group. See you again.